Alongside Ben McKee and Rob Lewis, I'm Austin Price for the Blue Water Climate Control Volquest.com podcast on this Tuesday. First, I want to thank our Volquest.com subscribers. Blue Water Climate Control gets more referrals to their website from Volquest than any other source by far. To show their appreciation, Volquest listeners get discounts on all services and repairs, which is really good because it's time to start turning on your air conditioning unit, although it was a little cool the last few days. And unfortunately, it might not work like it should. When that happens, you need to do what many others are doing, and that's called Blue Water Climate Control. Read their reviews, and you'll see the story after story about other companies tried to fix it with this. But Blue Water finally did that. Call the guys who did the repair right and then did it the right way the first time. Blue Water Climate Control, 299-2290. That's 299-2290. Guys, we'll start with baseball on this Tuesday. Tennessee will open up regional play coming up this weekend. Tough draw, Ben. I mean, you start with a Wright State team that can hit it like nobody's business, and then if you get past them, you're gonna face some really tough teams. And then even if you make it to the Super Regionals the following weekend, you're gonna have a motivated LSU team that you swept potentially, that's playing for their coach. You got an Oregon team that's been pretty good all year. I mean, they're going to have to play some good baseball. And I know you pointed this out on Twitter. Tennessee's a good baseball team. They're still going to have to play good baseball. They're going to make it to Omaha.
Yeah, and even though they're a good baseball team, it doesn't take away the sting from them being a number 3 overall seed and ending up with a pretty tough draw. And it looks like the committee favored location and teams not having to travel as far. I know LSU goes out to Oregon, but in terms of looking at some 4 seeds and kind of where they ended up, it seems like the committee preferred distance rather than looking at ability or something along those lines.
Look at that Gainesville. That Gainesville, regional has got 3 teams from Florida.
Exactly. So just kind of is what it is. I guess another unfortunate aspect of having to deal with COVID, but it's a really tough region, and Tennessee's going to have to come to play whether they're a good baseball team or not, because as you mentioned, Wright State's going to come out swinging. Wright State, according to some people who cover college baseball as a whole, probably should have been a 2 seed within a region, which is pretty remarkable. Since they're a 4 seed, they're the highest scoring team in the country. They led the nation in average on base percentage, slugging percentage, just a ridiculous lineup from top to bottom. So Wright State probably isn't a true 4 seed within a region. And of course, Tennessee somehow finds a way to land the toughest 4 seed in its region. And then you also have a Duke team that is on fire right now. They were 20-20 at one point and had to win the ACC tournament to get into the tournament and did so. And they're really rolling right now, have won 12 straight.
Did I read that right, Ben? Did they win? Oh, you just said it, 12 straight. That's pretty
12
hot.
Straight. They are. They're scorching hot right now. And like Tennessee basketball had to deal with Oregon State in the NCAA tournament, looks like Tennessee baseball is going to have to deal with the college baseball version of Oregon State. And that's Duke. Duke and Oregon State have a similar storyline going into the tournament of having to have won their conference tournament to get in. And then Liberty, a team that can really pitch and defend. So Tennessee definitely got the short end of the stick, but as long as they show up and they're themselves, they should be perfectly fine.
Rob, it's Tennessee athletics. You would expect the hardest path possible, right?
Or since they haven't had any self-inflicted wins, yeah, you would expect some kind of outside influence to, kind of crop up and throw some obstacles in their path. I'm not covering it like Ben is, and don't follow it as closely. I've had a ton of fun watching this team the past month, and I think you saw by the crowd response in Hoover this weekend, a lot of other people have too.
Well, I'm gonna be fascinated to see how Tennessee can use their camps and football recruiting, especially the official visits. If you're playing a normal sporting event, you can take those players to it. But since this is an NCAA regional, can Tennessee take official visitors for football that are in this weekend to said NCAA regional? Like, I don't know the answer to that question. But I think you got to find a way. You got to find a way to incorporate that somehow into the official visit the best you can, because I think it's a great tool, because you actually get a chance to have fans around some of these prospects and let them see what it's like for, a full Lindsey Nelson. Just imagine what it's like at Neyland Stadium. Kind of paint that picture, so to speak.
And they've got a couple of basketball kids coming in over the next 2 weekends. Kassan Wallace, the 5-star kid, will be in this weekend. So you're right, AP. That would be a great platform to kind of show what kind of support athletics gets around here.
We'll talk more recruiting coming up here near the end of the podcast, but Ben, we'll keep talking baseball. Take me through the idea to go Heflin with the first start down in Hoover instead of going Chad Dallas. What do you think they'll mix the rotation up again for regionals, or will they go back to their normal Chad Dallas starts and then we'll go Heflin in game 2?
I think they'll keep it as is. I think they wanted to keep Chad Dallas and Blade Tidwell in line with the upcoming regional weekend, and didn't want to overtax those guys because Will Heflin is just a different pitcher than Chad Dallas or Blade Tidwell. Blade Tidwell throws 98 miles an hour through all 6-7 innings of his outing. And Will Heflin is doing good to touch 88 consistently throughout the game. And that's what makes him so efficient. These college hitters, especially those in the SEC, are used to teeing off on guys who sit mid-90s, upper 90s. And Will Heflin comes in with his crafty breaking ball and changeup and mid-80s fastball, and it just keeps them off balance. And that's why he's so efficient. And he's not going to strike out a ton of guys. He's going to have a ton of guys off balance and rolling over on the ball and hitting ground balls and hitting a can of corn out to the outfield. So that's what makes Will Heflin so good. And in him pitching in that style, he's very efficient with his pitches. And Tennessee doesn't want to leave him out there a third time through the lineup because that's when the opposing team kind of starts to figure him out. And you see more often than not in the 6th, maybe the 7th inning, if he's in that long, teams start to tee off on him at that point. So he's usually in there to the 5th, the 6th inning, and he's only throwing 50 to 60 pitches, 70 pitches at max. So he's super efficient in his outings, and he's a guy that you can start on a Wednesday and then he's capable of bouncing back on short rest on a Sunday, and that's why you saw him pitch on Sunday. And that also feeds into this upcoming weekend with the regionals is you knew that he was only going to be around 50 to 60 pitches in Hoover in both of his starts, and he'll still be on track to pitch this weekend like he typically would. I think it's interesting that, Tennessee draws Wright State because there was some conversations amongst media members recently at the baseball game, just kind of, okay, if you draw a 4 seed in your regional, and typically the 4 seed would obviously be the weakest team of the bunch, do you maybe go with Will Heflin out of the gates and try to save Chad Dallas or a Blade Tidwell for later in the weekend against a perceived stronger opponent? But with the way Wright State swings the bats, I think you have to come out with Chad Dallas on Friday, and you probably roll out Will Heflin game 2 on Saturday, and then keep Blade Tidwell in his typical Sunday start. Although Blade Tidwell did move up to Friday in Hoover and pitch, so I could see him pitching on Saturday regardless. But the most important thing about Tennessee's pitching staff right now, and Tony Vitello said it on Monday during his media availability, is that they didn't overtax any of their pitchers, and they're all good to go for this upcoming weekend.
I mean, that was a great break in those 2 big wins on Thursday and Friday.
Do you think that the confidence level of this team just they're going to look at this and go, Wright State, okay, they hit it good. We're not going to get worried about Duke, who's won 12 in a row, and they're just going to go out and play. I mean, it just don't seem like they're going to overthink this. I mean, they seem, I won't say cocky, they just kind of a gelled, confident group.
They are cocky, but they're able to harness it in the correct way or bottle it up in the correct form. I mean, they are a confident group. I guess cocky can be a bad way to describe confidence, but they're a good cocky if that does make sense. They don't care who's on the mound. They don't care about the name on the jersey. That's what makes this team so good. They're not the most talented team in the country or the SEC. They may not even be a top 5 most talented team in the country. They'll have guys that play professionally, but you look 10 to 15 years from now at that Tennessee roster, at the Arkansas roster, at the Vanderbilt roster, and Arkansas and Vanderbilt are going to have twice as many professional baseball players as this Tennessee team, and Tennessee overcomes that by the grittiness and the cockiness that they play with.
I'm just, a lot more about it than I did, but I've been looking at, following the tournament this week and, looking at a lot of mock draft top 100 lists. Tennessee may not be a top 5 talented team in the conference, let alone the country. I mean, if you're going by the draft stuff.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And I would agree. I mean, they don't have any bona fide top 3, top 5 round guys. Well, they do have top 3, top 5 rounds. I shouldn't say that. I think Jake Rucker, Connor Pavoloni, Max Ferguson, I think they are going to be drafted in the top 3 rounds, top 5 rounds. But what separates Arkansas and Vanderbilt, the Mississippi schools, from some of these other schools is that they have first round, second round. Yeah, Florida, South Carolina, typically LSU, A&M. They have first and second round guys and a bunch of them. And Tennessee had one in Jackson Leith. He was going to be Tennessee's best pitcher this season, but he tore his hamstring completely off in 3 different places. His first appearance of the season, and he's been out for the season since. And he's a guy that could have been drafted last year, but his asking price was a little too high because he knew he could come back and pitch against SEC opponents and pitch himself into the first round. And he was a first round talent. He obviously won't be drafted in the first round now, and he's been a big loss and just magnifies the coaching job that Tony Vitello and Frank Anderson, the pitching coach, have done with this staff this season. But you're right, Tennessee doesn't have guys on this particular roster, at least in this draft, that will be drafted high. Blake Tidwell, Jordan Beck next year, they're probably first round, second round picks for sure. But Tennessee doesn't compare all that well in talent when you look at some of these other schools.
So do we think this baseball team compares to Rick's team a few years ago, Rob? Where he took a bunch of guys that weren't highly coveted and then just started, developed them, and they played with confidence, and they bought in, and there was a certain level of buy-in that led them to play, to a different level. Is there a correlation there? I mean, like, is it similar?
I think that's a pretty good analogy. I mean, although, that team ended up, like you said, nobody wanted them to begin with. But I mean, Grant Williams ends up being a 2-time SEC Player of the Year,
sure,
first round draft pick. But he picked Tennessee over Yale at the time. So I don't know. I guess as far as being unheralded as prospects to some degree, I can see that comparison. Hey, Ben, this may be a stupid question just because I don't follow it as closely as you do. How does Tennessee? I think Tennessee's played more games than anybody in the field that I can see. And the discrepancy is big in some cases. I got Tennessee with 61 total games, and some teams are. I think Mississippi is the only one I found that even had 60.
Yeah, I think Fairfield is a team that got in, and they're like 37-3. They've only played 40 games or so, and that's been one of Tony Vitello's talking points all year long, is that because the season last year was canceled, they wanted to get 60 games in this season, or I guess 56 in the regular season. That was the target number of games. That is something that they wanted to do because guys didn't get to play last year, so they wanted to do their best to make that up. And it wasn't always the easiest. They had a game canceled earlier in the season. I can't remember who it was against that got canceled. It was an Ohio team that just didn't want to come down and play. And so Tennessee got on the bus the next day and went to Austin Peay and played in Clarksville. And it wasn't the smoothest game for Tennessee, but they still just wanted to play a game despite circumstances. They got on the bus and went to Charlotte. And that it wasn't in best conditions or the best circumstances, but they just wanted to make sure that their guys could play this season and get to that 56 game mark. And Tony Vitello, again, has preached that all year long. And I think in part is because he knew the more games that they could play, the better off they would be for postseason baseball, because the more games you play, the more scenarios are going to pop up, the more lessons you are going to learn, so on and so forth. You're going to be more battle tested. So that's a great point, Rob, because that's been one of Tony Vitello's talking points this year, from preseason to just, I think it was Monday or Sunday after they lost to Arkansas. He mentioned it recently in one of his media availabilities that he was very proud that he and his staff and team were able to be one of the teams that played the most games in the country this year.
Yeah, they played 15 more games at Wright State. the team they're playing on Friday.
My favorite story was the team with the losing record that's found its way into the NCAA.
There's a couple. Aren't there two? Southern is
yeah,
one.
there's a couple. Yeah, as
I know
I think
Southern
they won
is
their
one, and
conference.
It's amazing.
Nuts.
It's amazing. Just getting hot at the right time and finding a way to get in. Speaking of getting in, there are kids all over college campuses, and they're getting into camps and official visits. That starts today as the NCAA mandated dead period for recruiting is behind us. Everything's back open again, at least for the month of June, and then it'll close for its normal dead period in July. But we're back to a normal recruiting period here. Rob, Tennessee basketball is going to have some pretty impressive visitors in the month of June. We'll start with basketball, then we'll flip to football at the end. Just kind of take me through, what Tennessee and what Rick Barnes hopes to get accomplished this month.
It's a big time group. I posted this on the board last week. They've got 4 kids that will be on campus for official visits this month that are ranked in the top 32 in the country. And I'll nail down the dates for everything later on. But the one coming in this weekend is Kason Wallace, 5-star shooting guard from out of the Dallas area in Texas. Big time player. Then later on, you're going to have Brandon Miller, from the 5-star forward from Nashville. Kane Ridge, he's going to be in town. Local standout BJ Edwards is going to be in town. Forward Deontay Green from over in the Asheville area, Asheville Christian School, is going to be in. And Noah Clowney, big man from the Spartanburg area, is going to be in as well, 6'11" kid. Dylan Mitchell, ranked number 31 in the country. He's a forward from down in Florida. And Jalen Hood Shafino is the number 32 ranked player in the class. He's a guard, was previously committed to Villanova. So that's six kids, 5 of them in the top 100, 4 in the top 32. And I think I think we have him way underrated at just barely inside the top 100 as well. And that's one, BJ's going to take a couple other visits, but I really, really like Tennessee's chances with him right now.
Yeah, that's why, I always say never get worked up about rankings. When kids go against other top players and perform at the level that BJ Edwards has performed, going against some of these really, really good players that Catholic has played or the B-Mays elite team has played, that's why I don't get real worked up about the rankings. Because not just rivals, they're 24/7 or ESPN, whoever ranks them, they all miss, and so that's why it's who wants them, and how they perform against other big time.
And the rankings they're crazy this year because kids in football or basketball have been seen less than they have in a quarter of a century. The opportunities for evaluation just haven't been there.
Rob, when you look at these guys that are coming in this month, do you think Tennessee's in best available mode and they'll just kind of take best available, or do you think they'll go position specific?
I think they definitely need or going position specific when it comes to adding a point guard and adding size. Because I don't think you can count on Kennedy Chandler sticking around Knoxville very long. He might. I'm not saying that. And I think Rick is in a mode right now where he's not going to go through another year like he went through this year, where size was a real impediment inside. He canceled some of that out by being such a freak. But I think he's in a mode now where he's going to have multiple 6'10", 6'11" guys on the roster that he can throw at people. So I think they definitely want to add size. They definitely want to add a point guard. And then after that, yeah, I think that's a good point, Ben. Best available.
Talk Tennessee football recruiting now.
Big week, AP.
Yeah, camp start today, Rob. You
got your whistle?
No, we'll have full coverage from campus later today, and then we'll have coverage Friday night of the night at Neyland camp, where Tennessee will have a lot of in-state and players inside kind of their footprint, but specifically a lot of in-state players. I think there's a chance that Isaiah Horton, the Herrings, Cam Miller, Nathan Robinson, the big kid, from Greenbrier, Tennessee comes in. I expect Tennessee to have a lot of in-state kids here coming up Friday night. I'm interested to see how that event goes. The Orange Carpet Day became such a big deal under the Butch Jones, staff. This staff at night at Neyland, I like this whole. I think everything's better at nighttime. So I think that doing a camp at night at Neyland has the possibilities to be really, really good. Tennessee going to end up with a couple of official visitors this weekend. Jalen Glover, the running back, Demario Tolan, the kid from Florida. Joshua Josephs was supposed to be here. But I don't think he's going to make his decision until the fall. And so I think he's not going to visit officially this weekend. I know they hope to get him in unofficially in the month of June. I think he plans on doing that. But I think he's going to push his official visit at Tennessee back to the fall, which honestly, I think Tennessee is, anytime they can do that, anytime they know for sure that a kid's not going to commit in this next 30 days or so, I think it's wise to push it to the fall, because you can get them here for a game, let them feel the atmosphere, gives you more time to develop a relationship, and you shoot your shot then versus shooting it early. So, I don't look for a ton of official visitors this weekend. The next 3 weekends after that are going to be big, though. And I think more so than anything, it's about, Friday night, the night at Neyland, and all the in-state kids and kids inside the kind of the footprint here that can get to campus.
Austin, you always see coaches trying to battle it out with other schools, or I should say schools battling against each other, trying to get kids on campus for visits in the fall. How competitive is it going to be this June between schools trying to battle it out to get kids on campus? I mean, I saw today on Twitter where Florida State's having kids on campus the moment the clock hits midnight.
Yeah, I mean, however you can get juice, it's kind of like that whole high school, the high school team that practices at midnight, the moment that you can start practicing, just because it's a spectacle, you make a deal out of it, it's exciting for the kids. So I understand the logic of doing that. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of competition, and that's why all these schools have been plotting and planning for months on, hey, lock me in June 12th, lock me in June 19th, lock me in, whatever date. And so, that's going to happen. And, again, I think for Tennessee, it's not about how many you get in the month of June. It's more about how many do you survive them not pulling the trigger and making a decision in haste, just because now you can take a trip. We've talked about Dallin Hayden. I'm pretty firm on, if Tennessee can survive the month of June, their chances to land Dallin Hayden go up dramatically. And, we'll see, how he feels coming out of that Ohio State visit. But if he does come here unofficially later in the month for a day or two trip, I think that goes a long way to kind of establishing Tennessee being a contender there for Dallin Hayden's services. And there's going to be a lot of guys like that.
Yeah, and you just got to get kids on campus. I mean, that's the big thing, in my opinion, because there is this perception of Tennessee football right now and how down it is, and the looming NCAA investigations and whatnot. You just have to get kids on campus right now and let them get in not only the new Tennessee football environment, but just let them be in Knoxville. Let them be in East Tennessee. Knoxville and East Tennessee has so much to offer compared to other SEC towns. I was in Columbia, South Carolina last weekend, and it does not compare to East Tennessee or Knoxville. It's not even close. So just examples of that. You got to get kids in and just let them experience the Knoxville vibe, so to speak, or the University of Tennessee vibe, because it is different than other schools. This place has a lot of special qualities to it that the NCAA investigation and the losing on the football field over the last decade or so has kind of covered up. So just as simple as getting them on campus, I think is so critical.
Well, Tennessee's had so much change over the last 12, 15 years, Rob. You really look at, the current state of things. They are experiencing things right now that they've never experienced before. And just when you think you've seen it all, you have all the change and the investigation and all that. It's not just as simple as changing coaches and and getting and the recruits getting a feel for the new staff, you have to incorporate all the things Ben just said, and that makes it harder. I mean, it's not just as simple as, well, you should be able to recruit these 4-star guys, because these 4-star guys, 4 and 5-star guys, they want to play. They all don't want to have to necessarily play at Alabama, but they all want the possibility. They want the dream of playing for a championship. They want all those things. And if you're saying that there's a X amount of your bowl ban, that changes things for them.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the NCAA does crazy stuff. Who knows? But I have a hard time seeing a multi-year bowl ban with the way Tennessee has bent over backwards to accommodate or to be transparent. But you can't say that with any finality right now if you're Tennessee.
Nope.
And
that's right.
And if you're a rival school recruiting against Tennessee, it is beyond easy to plant a seed of doubt or uncertainty in the mind of a prospect or the mind of a parent. And I think besides the NCAA stuff, I think the biggest obstacle, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, is that the last time Tennessee was in Atlanta playing for a championship, the kids that they're trying to recruit in the 22 class were 3 years old, 4 years old. That is the biggest obstacle facing Tennessee getting back, being recruited against Georgia, against Alabama, against Florida, winning some of those head-to-head battles or winning their share of those head-to-head battles and keeping kids in state.
That's right. How do they continue to be it's not even the cool school. How do you continue to be the fun school? And that's what they've made themselves this spring with all the things they've done. You saw them playing laser tag when the summertime enrollees arrived. How do you continue to be the fun school without it being, that being your only thing? You want to be fun, but you want to be about football too. So like, how do you marry them together?
It can't be a gimmick. You gotta win some games.
That's right.
I was just going to add that to Rob's point that the recruits truly believe that Josh Heupel and his coaching staff are genuine. Now it's about showing just how genuine they are in person. Jalen Glover, who you mentioned is taking an official visit this upcoming weekend. When I spoke with him, he raved about how genuine Josh Heupel and the coaching staff is, and Jerry Mack and so on and so forth. And he made the comment that, okay, now he wants to get them in a room, and he's done all the Zooms. He's heard all the talk to get him to campus and whatnot. Now it's about just seeing how genuine they are in person, and he wants to be able to pick up on that vibe in person. So I do think that this coaching staff is genuine, that they do care about the players more than just simply them being a football player. But now it's about showing them in person when they get to campus.
I mean, it's a big week, AP. I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but for the first time, Josh Heupel is going to be selling Tennessee's football program and himself, and not on a screen, in person, press and flesh.
That's right. He'll be, as Brent Musburger would say, live with every prospect he can over the next month. So, it will be interesting to see how it all transpires over the next 30 days or so. Tennessee, of course, with prospects on their campus as we speak, as camp is set to kick off this morning. They'll have a morning wave, an afternoon wave, and of course the night at Neyland coming up on Friday before a couple of official visitors this weekend. For Ben McKee and Rob Lewis, I'm Austin Price. This has been the Blue Water Climate Control Volquest.com podcast.